Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Mr. Nitin Akhade. He is the Executive Director of Energy Access and Livelihood at Customized Energy Solution, leading the customized application for rural economies initiatives. With over 12 years of experience, he specializes in energy access, developing sustainable business models, and fostering market linkage for rural communities in India and Africa. He also served as Vice Chairperson for the Clean Energy Access Networks. Nitin holds dual master degree in nuclear engineering from Spain and France and has worked on diverse projects and renewable energy, clean cooking, and safety assessment for nuclear power plants. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Nitin Akhade.
Hello everyone. So you're able to hear me, right?
Yes.
Let's see, and that will help. Yeah. So thank you first of all, Sitara, Professor.
You can use
Rao.
this mic also. This mic also.
No, I think it's fine. And let's see what best use we can make of the time we have. So it's very interesting. I'll start something 2 minutes. I'll take. You get used to who I am or how we can structure this dialogue. Hopefully it should not be a monologue. So we are all using electricity, right, in our house. So have anybody traveled to any place in the country where there is no electricity for one day, or you have stayed in such village? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, tell me, right, like your experience. Where it was, which was that village, which state?
So in this May,
Loudly.
So in this summer, we went to southern part of Nashik district.
Oh, Nashik district.
So it was on the border of Palghar and Nashik. So there we faced a problem like so just a little cyclone was there, and we faced a problem for 7 days. There was no electricity.
Okay. 7 days there was no electricity because of cyclone or because of?
The pole.
Okay.
Pole.
It was not an energy access, but there was no electricity because of cyclone, right? Because of the infrastructure was broken down. Anybody where there is no absolute electricity? Definitely that is the situation. Just yeah.
Sir, in my own district, that is Kanpur Dehad,
Okay.
there was a village, I think it was a 2 years, there was no electricity.
ओके सो कानपुर देहात में हम नज़दीक गए थे, उन्नाव गए थे हम 2015-16 में, तो वहाँ पे हमने कुछ काम किया था, बट वो कानपुर देहात का बता रहे हैं. यस बताइए.
Yeah, so
सो दैट इज अ विलेज. नाउ इट हैज इलेक्ट्रिसिटी.
now it is had.
Now it has, right? So I am setting this context. Do you know what is the population of our entire globe? 8 billion people approximately. And what are the statistics World Bank gives? What is the number in Africa or global south? The word which you are very familiar, right? A buzzword word है global south. तो उसमें कितने लोग हैं, या how many people are still not having a proper electricity connection just for lighting and phone charging? I'm not talking about washing machine. I'm not talking about infrastructure for EVs. How many people roughly? Out of 8 million people, how many people don't have access to electricity? A basic 1 billion, yeah, it's a good number, right? So 600-700 million people are still struggling to have access to electricity. The number can be more higher if you take into account the reliability of electricity, right? And in that way we are trying to understand, if you want to promote an electrical infrastructure, we know how we can generate electricity by n number of ways. By water through hydro, by atoms through nuclear, by solar energy, by thermal, by fossil fuel, oil and gas, natural gas, everything can produce electricity. But what infrastructure can produce electricity at a grassroots, which is might be 50 kilometers from the last transmission pole, which is 11 kV or 33 kV feeder, right? To stretch a transmission line from there, it takes a lot of cost. So which infrastructure can be more decentralized, more democratized, right, where we can use electricity as per the need of the community affordable, accessible, and adaptable. So we're going to talk about something called as mini grids. You all know what are mini grids. Don't ask the sizes or definition of mini grids. It's not written anywhere. From 0 watt to 10 watt, it is micro, nano, pico, whatever. So mini grid is more like a decentralized infrastructure that had its own generation unit, own distribution unit, and its own transmission network along with the energy storage. So किन लोगों ने mini grid देखा? We'll have this conversation in Hindi, Marathi or English, right? Not Marathi, only Hindi and English. Okay. So you'll not go to Marathi, okay? So आप लोगों ने मिनी ग्रिड देखा है? पालघर में तो बहुत सारे लगाए हुए हैं, especially in border district. Anybody has seen actual mini grid or you are doing some projects on mini grid? Sir, इनको सब करवाते हैं project mini grid में, right? Now we can come to the internship or project, right? We can take 50 students also. Now with this network, we can leverage that, and you'll feel amazing. There are 4,000 microgrids in India itself. That is AC microgrids. There are 10,000 DC microgrids pulled by Rural Electrification Corporation across the country. Still we don't know where they are. We want to really make them happen. Can we know where these mini grids are? For 4,000 we have some data for 1,200, 1,300 mini grids. At least on Excel sheet, not on portal. In the world there are 20,000 microgrids. And to reach those 6,000, 7,000 or 600, 700 million people, we need mini grid. Almost 200,000 mini grids we need in next 10 years. It's a massive number. Hoga, nahi hoga, we don't know. But you can go through the Google and see program called M300, which was recently launched by Rockefeller, Power Africa, and World Bank. So they are trying to reach 300 million people. That is almost like 60 to 70 household connections by 2030 to cope with the Sustainable Development Goal number. Which is the Sustainable Development Goal number for energy? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7. Thank you so much. So we'll go on the slides. Definitely I don't go on the slides, but now we have put, so we have to go through the slides. So mini grid का आपको history थोड़ा समझ में आ गया, right? We can have plenty of time, but in interest of time itself, we'll restrict our conversation to 45 minutes. Okay, and then we'll have some Q&A sessions. So I'll put some figures, right? This is a typical one microgrid, very famous in Zambia. एक से अभी 6-7 हो रहे हैं. So I put some numbers of this. More like a data, so you'll also understand. This is a 30 kilowatt system. Lithium lead acid batteries. And this is a household in the eastern province of Zambia. A very beautiful country. Victoria waterfall है वहाँ पे. Then Kafue National Park है. Because you also need to understand the landscape, right? तब काम करने में और मजा आता है. But the population is less than the city of Delhi or Mumbai, entire country population. And the land holding is almost equivalent to 5 South Indian states. So जगह तो ऐसा मिल जाता है. अभी किसको जाम्बिया में सेटल होना है, then we can watch for that. You will get 10-12 hectares of land. You can cultivate farming. Life will be much better. India is also definitely much better, but you can contribute to their economy also. So the land holding is very large, but the population is 17 million. What is the population of Mumbai? कितना है population पूरे बॉम्बे का?
1 crore approximately.
1 crore.
More than
वो तो अरे 2010 में ही था.
more than 1 crore. It is a mega city. So
ना. यार हम तो सिटी में रहते यार, मुंबई मेरी जान, राइट? कैसा होगा? कितना population? मुंबई तो largest है इंडिया में. More than Delhi NCR. So it's almost 28, 29 somewhere. Million, means like 22.8 crore. Somewhere 2.4 to 2.8 crore. So it's a massive city. So Zambia is 1.7. Right? See. So the density is also less, but my point here is to tell almost 10 million people are without access to electricity. The rural electrification rate is very, very low there. In India, we have reached 99% as per the ministry portal, and it's true. Poles are set up, we have to move electrons through them, and it will happen. It will happen because it's a massive continent itself. It takes efforts, money, everything, and collective efforts of implementing agency also. But positive, by 2030, I think we'll be in good position to reach to that number. So this mini grid, it's a nice village in the eastern province, having somewhere around 300 households. All are not connected. they didn't have electricity right from the colonization of British or after their independence. They got independence in 24th October 1964. They celebrated their recent 60 years of independence recently. So they don't have any electricity in that part of the province or county. This was the first mini grid set up in 2019, and these are some coal and distribution and all, because all these areas can be one research, right? Why this much 96? Why only 213? Why not 300 households? And then there is a consumption pattern. My question about all this saying is monthly revenue from the collection of the money from the households or the businesses. So mini grid provide electricity to the households and to some businesses which are in the vicinity of their transmission network or DN, like आटा चक्की हो, तेल की दलहन की मिल हो, right? और pulverizer हो, pulverizer तो उधर होता नहीं है, because they don't eat masalas, right? Spices नहीं है वहाँ पे. But there are groundnut decocticators, groundnut shelling, peanut butter making, concrete block making. Can you imagine? You give them electricity, they will find a way to make money. कंक्रीट के ब्लॉक्स अच्छे बना रहे और 24-25 रुपए मींस 8-10 क्वाचा में बेच रहे वो, एंड दे आर एबल टू यूज दैट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी फॉर प्रोडक्टिव यूज और इनकम जनरेशन. सो दिस आर सम ऑफ these 12 प्रोडक्टिव यूज अप्लायंसेस, एंड दिस इज द कंजम्पशन पैटर्न, हाउ दे आर टैरिफिंग and how much the revenue they are collecting. My question is, what is the capex, what is opex, can mini grid be sustainable, right? We'll see. That's the end conclusion for us. समझ में आ रहा है? बाउंस जा रहा है आप लोगों को? अगर बाउंस जा रहा है तो बताना. क्वेश्चन you can always ask. Just raise your hand and then we can move forward. So monthly revenue is this much. What is the capex? Have you anybody as a first year student थोड़ा इंटरेस्ट लेके एमएनआरई का बेंचमार्क कॉस्ट क्या है 1 किलोवाट सिस्टम के लिए, या छोड़ो बेंचमार्क भी, आपके घर के ऊपर अगर आपको 1 किलोवाट का सिस्टम लगाना है सोलर का और उसको 4 घंटे बैकअप देना है बैटरी का, तो कितना खर्चा होगा? आई कैन आस्क दिस राइट? ओके, ओह सॉरी या जामिया में इंग्लिश बोलना पड़ता है, बट इंडिया में आके थोड़ा वो हिंदी का फ्लेवर आ जाता है, बट आई विल स्पीक इन स्ट्रिक्टली इंग्लिश, ओके, एज पर सर्स order and also suggestion. Okay. So tell me, if you want to put 1 kilowatt solar system and 4 kilowatt of lithium batteries, okay, how much it will be the cost? एक thumb rule होता है. Anybody? Sorry, sir, I am putting them on the radar. But
They thought the Q&A session is at the end of the
oh, so ये ना monologue हो जाता है. I really don't like monologue, right? It should be dialogue. डेमोक्रेसी ये डायलॉग होना चाहिए. अब तो पार्लियामेंट में देखिए वी गेट लॉट ऑफ डायलॉग्स राइट इन पार्लियामेंट, इंडियन पार्लियामेंट.
So you first tell them some story and they will ask you.
Okay. So typically we land up into 1 lakh or 1.25 lakh per kilowatt with 4 hours battery backup. So if you see this all this system, it will cost you somewhere around $100,000. Now an OPEX cost is something. Then if you see and add some finance to it, it will take 10 to 12 years for any project to get approved or at least become break even, right? So is 10 or 12 year okay for any such projects, or any idea about big projects like coal or nuclear? What is their break even, or what is their arrangement with the banks? How much time they take to repay back them? It's 30 years, but for mini grids they are not giving at least 4 or 5 years. So that's the catch here. People are not investing because they are feeling it should get money back in 1 or 2 years. It's not possible. You are not comparing same things. So that's the point I need to say. So this is a typical graph of that particular mini grid. If you see, if it is a 30 kilowatt system, how much units it should generate in a given sunny day? In one day, how much units it can generate? If it's a 30 kilowatt peak system, 150. Okay. Anybody else? Some guesses. Yes.
80%.
80% of 30. कितना होगा? 24 और 24. Okay.
120
Means 96 to 100 you are telling, right? If it is 80%. Okay. Good guess. You are near to the number. Yes. 120 kilowatt hour because you added 4 hours and then 30 kilowatt peak. Yeah. So it's approximately from 100 to 150. But at given standard condition, it doesn't happen. This particular mini grid, which is operating successfully for 5 years, we see their consumption, solar generation, if you see, it's almost around 1800 units a month, right? So you are hardly getting 70 to 80 units a day. What we have detailed final sheet for that. So why it is happening? There are a lot of reasons. What can be those reasons? Is there is no demand? If there is no demand, solar will not generate because it's a cut-off with the inverter and the battery. Or are the panels not efficient? Is there a maintenance issue? So as an engineer or social engineers, we have to think on these directions. These are very interesting questions. There are amazing papers out in academia also which talks about this. If you put a 30 kilowatt system, why it is not giving 120 kilowatt hour or 120 units a day? And it's not happening anywhere in the mini grids. I have seen almost 1500 mini grids in India, in Jharkhand, in Odisha, in Maharashtra, in UP and in Northeast. But I see all same pattern. So manufacturer do commit, the panel owner or the mini grid developer, yeah, we'll get 4 or 5 units per installation of watt peak, kilowatt peak. But it's not happening. What's the reason for that? So that is one of the questions we have to really address. So that was on solar side. There is also genset involved here. Genset is generator and consumption. So it is following a good model. So whatever is the offtake generated, it is getting consumed. But you see a very interesting thing here. It started in April 2019. It definitely was a pandemic year. And here you see the generation and the consumption is somewhat building up. And then after 2 years, it is almost stabilized. So this is a pattern in every mini grid. Slowly and steadily, it starts building the utilization. So here the question comes, should we then put a direct infrastructure of 30 kilowatt or do modular installations? That can save cost or not, or it will add more cost. So you put 10 kilowatt first, and as and when the load increases, can you put more installation in modular structure? Is it feasible? Because you have to ship all the goods almost down to the rural India. It's not easy, or rural Zambia. So these are some cautious decisions we have to make from this chart. Now what we are trying to do, we understood. Look guys, if we want to make mini grid successful, एक thumb rule बना दिया है या एक one point we came to conclusion that at least the mini grid household consumption is 30 to 40 only % of entire any mini grid you go. 30 to 40, it's really good consumption because household in rural India, they don't have high wattage appliances. They don't have refrigerators, no washing machine, no aircon, no geysers, no heaters, no electric induction. These are high wattage, right? Almost more than 1000 watts. So what they use? A light, 9 watt, 3 watt, a fan, 40 watt, 60 watt, a radio, which I seen a popular device in Zambia, hardly 60 watt, a television, 45 watt. So if you combine all these wattages, it will never go above 130 or 140 watt. This is, and they're really happy. So if you tally up all these 213 connections, you will hardly reach to 25, 30 or 40 units a day. And if you are generating 90 units, where this another 50 units are going? Or if you want to make mini grids utilization 100%, where is the offtake or demand for another 70% or 70 units? So that's where mini grid people are trying to find answers for promoting something called as productive use of applications or productive end use by applying this energy for agri processing, dairy, livelihood, handicraft and all. So using this energy and trying to generate some employment in the grassroots so that it can operate. Is it really that simple? So we are trying to do a project with Engie. Engie is a French company and they are setting some 100 microgrids in Zambia and 500 in collectively Benin, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania and Zambia. It's a massive conglomerate, oil and gas company, but they have this portfolio. And what we are doing, we are trying to do a demand stimulation. Can we really give you a clear picture by adding machines? Will your mini grid come to that 60% utilization through green businesses or green entrepreneurs? So what we are doing here, this is a mini grid and we have identified these 4 equipments are very much needed, at least in Zambian context. You know where is Zambia actually on the map? That was a question I was supposed to ask. You would definitely be knowing. It's not a cricket playing nation, definitely, but it has 3-4 cricket playing nation around it. Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia. So I think we know where Zambia is. It's in the southern part of Africa. And what is Zambia famous for? Which mineral? Very important mineral in electrical engineering. Yes. Copper. Exactly. So Zambia gives almost 30 to 40% of the world copper reserve they have. KCM is one Indian company managed by Vedanta Group, Anil Agarwal ji, and then First Quantum is one, the Canadian company. So they are massive conglomerate, also doing a lot of business on energy side also. So Zambia, and how we arrived at this machine? Can anybody guess from the forum? Why oil expeller? What is hammer mill? Dehuller? Yes, have you heard about this? Definitely this though you might have seen.
Rice.
This is pump, right? It's not rice. No? This is pump, electric pump or water pump, submersible or surface water. Okay. That is oil expeller. We do use oil, right? Edible cooking oil. But how it is made? And then this is a hammer mill and dehuller. These are massive wattage equipment. And why we selected this? Any guesses? What simple guess? So it's very simple to understand. Why we selected this?
Because they are run by women.
Oh wow, women empowerment. Definitely, yes. They are run by
Because I
women.
know the dehullers
Mm-hmm.
from where we scrap the outer layer of.
Exactly, yeah.
Women are actually employed. I don't know about this.
For which grain they do?
For rice.
Exactly, yeah. So in Zambia they don't grow rice, but she definitely has some understanding what dehuller is. As an engineer, we definitely know solution, but where its application lies, it's very important. So one thing we do, we go and don't say them we are giving you mini grids now. So at least what I do or I tell my team to do, just observe the village, take 2 rounds of the village, circumference, right? And observe the things. What is the local economy there? That's very important. Don't have a push approach, right, for the thing. It should be pull from the community. So once we go to the village, we see what is the economy, what is the land holding of the community. That's very important. What kinds of crops are grown? In this context, Zambia, the staple food is maize. And the staple diet is shima, which is like a boiled maize powder. Like we eat with rice and chapati kind of thing. So that is first dehulling this to remove the skin, and then it is crushed into a fine micron level. Like what we have for atta chakkis, right? What flour we get. And then, this is very interesting. This is oil expeller. We get sunflower oil from there because sunflower is grown in large quantity, and then you can irrigate the water. So we selected all these 4. That's the mapping of the equipment first. And can this run by the solar energy? Definitely these are all equipments. This is 10 HP, that is 15 HP, that is 15 HP, and that is 3 HP. How much it is collectively? 30 plus 10, 40 plus 3, 43. And if you convert that into kilowatt system, it will be 30 kilowatt, right? And these mini grids are almost 50 or 100 kilowatt systems. New mini grids, whatever I showed the example, it was more like a demo mini grid there. So new mini grids which we are trying to see is 50 or 100 kilowatt. If it is 50 kilowatt, it will cater to 60% of load. If it is 100 kilowatt, it will cater to 30% of load. But then these machines will get replicated. Are you with me? Whatever I am telling you are able to understand? We are trying to create demand. But unnatural, we are not creating unnatural demand. We are trying to understand ground realities and then help the people, right, to get these machines. So we are trying to do this. We have almost deployed 6 of all these machines on 6 mini grids. And now we'll be able to see the results for next 6 months. So that's the project we are doing. So this is some of the mini machines what we have got from the communities. This is groundnut plant actually, and then these are the hullers. So the best part is this is a groundnut decorticator. I think we'll see the videos later on. And this is an overall initiative. I have put the logo of one of our partner also. They are helping us. So in Zambia, these are some of the initiatives we are running across 3 different districts: Petauke, Sinda, and Chipangali. And through Kobo only we get a lot of data, and we are trying to see. You can see the black spots. These are households, and these red are productive use applications. And this is the entire road and the transmission network. So what amazing thing we observed was in 2019 the houses that were near the mini grids were very less. After 4 years, the houses started moving to where the electricity is there. So that is also one conclusion we are trying to draw. But it takes a lot of effort and time. We need a time frame of 5 to 10 years to assess this. Is there a real impact? So we are trying to understand what I mentioned. Just go and take a walk around the village, right? When we go to some site, understand the local economy, understand people, talk to them, what we actually do, and then we start filling our surveys. So we are working in Zambia on dairy also, to solarize them. On agri processing, definitely we showed them, right? And fisheries. Fisheries is one thing we want to tap into, where that can generate a lot of revenue, because this is also staple food. Weaving, handicraft, decentralized looms, we are doing more in India, in Northeast, what I will be talking in just 3-4 slides at the end of the presentation. So this is a groundnut decorticator, very interesting. We got this lifted from Rajkot, airlift, right? The cost of this airlift was more than the cost of the machine. The cost of the machine was $2,100 and the airlift cost was $3,500. Because in Zambia or in any African countries there is lack of manufacturing capacity, right? Most of the things are imported from China or India, because it becomes more easy. But now we are seeing there are some companies within South Africa or Zambia, they are coming forward and promoting local manufacturing, at least assembly. It always starts with assembly and then it can go to manufacturing of critical spare part. So it's like a standard kit, SKD form. So that comes and get assembled locally. So now whatever 40 projects we have done, we have not imported a single machine from India. There is 2-3 good players in Zambia, we identified them, work with them for tweaking 1 or 2 things, and now we are able to deliver the project in 15 to 20 days. Because sometimes if you have to import machine from China or India, it takes 6 to 7 months. 6 to 7 months is a big time. Okay? So we want to do projects at the scale like 15-20 days across the nation. So that's where we want to see how local partner comes together, and this work is more about partnerships. So have you anybody seen groundnut decorticator? What is groundnut decorticator? Chilka nikalna, right? It's more about removing the shell of the groundnut. So how they did it in Zambia? When I went first time to this eastern province, I met a village headman and I saw 10-12 people sitting together, and with a clip they were breaking groundnuts. And I thought how much it takes to do 2 or 3 bags. It takes 1 day for them, and 1 bag is almost like 50 kg, 60 kg, and from that they will get 30 kg of actual peanuts. So that's amazing time they are like investing. 10 people and getting 2 bags. So what we should do to them? Then they told, can we get something mechanized, right? And then there was the electricity already available by NG. So we got this groundnut decorticator. It took 6 months to get this project on ground because of the transport issues. Getting from Bombay to Dar es Salaam, from Dar es Salaam to Lusaka. It takes time. But now, what data I have, they have deshelled 25 tons in 4 hours. 25 tons in 4 hours. And this machine is 3 HP. And it worked for just 4 hours. So it consumed almost 10 to 12 units in a day. And this mini grid was 70 kilo units they were giving. So this machine single-handedly contributed 12% increase in the utilization. So that was the conclusion. Though there is a seasonality on this, but this machine was really helpful. not good at videos, not professionally, right? So whatever video we get captured from our camera.
At this rate, we generate 25.
Yes, so it is almost like per hour they are doing 700-800 kgs and sorry.
6 tons per hour.
2.5 tons.
Yeah.
2.5
Yeah, I think what numbers we have, and we also did clarify it, right?
Sir, you said 800 kgs per hour, so it would be 2.4 tons, right?
Might be 4 hours a day they are working, and they are taking 3-4 days to do it. Yes, but that was the number which I calculated when there was a facts what he has put together. Because the speed of the machine, yeah, definitely. In 10 to 15 minutes, they were putting almost like 300-400 kg bags in the hopper. So we can get back, but it will come to that level, or it can be 2.5 tons, 25 tons might be a period of 4 days, and it has taken 4 hours every day to deshell it. So that can be there, the understanding of the groundnut decorticator. But very interesting, see, machines, when we see it has to be operated nicely. It's also depend upon the entrepreneur. We gave similar machine in Kendrapada district of Odisha. They did nothing. We took the machine back. Okay. That was a challenge, and this entrepreneur, he had a challenge with the screen. He did welding himself and made the shell size more bigger, means the mesh size more bigger. So it also depends on that. The solution we propose, because the groundnut shells are much larger as compared to Indian groundnut shells. They're really big in size. So it depends really on the motivation of entrepreneur also to find that right person. And this groundnut deshellers also has to have some level of moisture in it before it gets crushed. If it is too much hard, it will break the shell, right? So what he did, he just sprinkled some water on it, and it made wonder. So I was surprised, right? Sometimes if people really want to make things work, they will find the way out, rather than just depending upon CS or Nitin will come from Lusaka or India and make us work. It will not going to happen. So motivation of an entrepreneur also lies. That's why creating local champions, right? You are from a department where you work on rural development projects. Will be out of the project in next 2 years, right? Unless there is a local champion created in a community, it's really very difficult to sustain any project. So that's one area we are actively looking, identifying right entrepreneurs when you give this machine to them. And these machines are not given on grant, at least we have stopped that now. So what are 40 machines we have given? We have used different models, pay per use now, pay later, pay as you go model, or lease to own model. But successful is lease to own model, where they pay 20% down payment and then monthly installment of some percentage for next 24 months. So they are also at not risk, but they are also accountable, right? So, and if they don't pay, it's little harsh on our side, but that machine is linked to electricity. The connections get disconnected from NG. So they pay to NG, but they do pay because they are regularly getting much higher income with these machines. Some have paid money within 12 months also and ordered next machine. So they have ordered this another machine. So I'll just see they are also able to get 2 or 3 jobs also to operate this machine. At least it's seasonal, but it can generate 100 to 120 days of employment for groundnut in a year for 2 people, means 60 days each. 2 people are required, right? So that is also one small impact what we have with this machine. And if you listen to this Paul.
Okay. This is the machine we use to shell groundnuts and scope.
Yes. Sorry.
Yes. People come up with they do appreciate the way it works. And again, it gives a lot of people benefits like the offer some once we are operating this, as you can see, the techniques that we can develop the same machine. I really appreciate. I didn't know that it's something that we didn't help us, but now it has come, the dream has come, which we are now seeing the benefits of what this machine is all about.
Yeah. So this is just what we have seen, the operation. Yeah. So what I need to say here is we miserably failed for 6 months because it's a drought year in Zambia. See, I'm sharing failures also because that's important to share failures. So we got this machine in March this year, and we hope that by April or May they will have their first harvest of Brahman. And it's massive calculation there. It's a drought year, so it didn't click. So, but he really managed some 80 tons they have done now in drought year also through irrigation and all. And he was able to use that machine and he paid 50% of the money. 50% of the money they will be paying. Why I am emphasizing, unless you get your money back, you can't invest that in next projects, right? So we're trying to see, definitely grants are needed where we need to give some push to some projects which are in the nascent stage. But if it is a already established model, why to grant, but create a market-based solution. So this is another. So it's very interesting. You have to give right solution also. If you see this box and all, it takes a lot of time. Almost 20% to 15% cost goes on connection. Right MCB, right motor control circuit, right cabling, right connector also to the machine, because this machine is portable. You can take into field also. So you have to give a portable connector for 5 meter length of line. So these features really help to take this machine again, load on some vehicle and take to the next farm. So that's where right now we are trying to work with things. This is another machines we are trying to see develop. This is a hammer mill. It's a massive agricultural company, a sister branch of Kirloskar, established in 1982 in Zambia. It started as a small workshop in Livingstone where Victoria waterfalls are there, and then it has spreaded like massive. So we are working with their engineering head, and now we are trying to see can we customize this. These are 10 HP. Now we have 1 to 7.5 HP. Now we are trying to get a single phase motor of 3 HP. So we can have a modularity and also cost reduction. And then we are trying to work with different models, lease to own model or cash to price also. If they take machine upfront, then we don't charge them much, right? Because they are paying the money. This is another area we are working. All these pumps are mini grid connected. So they are able to get land rental cultivation. And these are some projects we did successfully, but we had a hard time this year because of drought. We didn't find water till 80-90 meters in Zambia, which was the case earlier couple of years. 30 meters used to get good water, like 3 liter or 5 liter per second. So we stopped that. We told let's rain happen now. The rain season will start. Let the water table get built up, and then we'll use. So now what we are doing here, to use the water efficiently, we are not charging on electricity or infrastructure. We are charging on water usage. We just put a one flow meter, and on every 1000 of liters of water delivered, we charge in India 3 rupees per liter, and in their context it's 6 to 7 rupees per liter, or 2 or 3 kwacha, the local currency. Because when they see the meter running, they use water more efficiently. So what BSES Rajdhani also did, when they started seeing there is a lot of theft happening in Delhi NCR, what they did, very smartly they just removed the meter from your house and they put it in the courtyard outside your house. That solved 90% of the theft challenges in Delhi. So because there is a social stigma, right? If you can tap the wire outside. We didn't do that, but we tapped the flow meter arrangement. So it's really working. There are 140 pumps already deployed in Indian Baraich district and Gonda district of UP. But we are trying to see how this model can be more efficient, because a single farmer using a pump will not irrigate regularly. Once we feed the water to the field, every 3 days we need to give water. Then pump will be ideal for next 2 days. It will not repay to the farmer. So now we are working with community of farmers. Get 10 farmers together, have a 20 hectare land holding, and these farmers use the asset. And then they pay us. And we create a lead farmer from the 20 farmer itself, who will maintain that and give him 20% commission of that. He is more than happy to give you more customers. So rather than getting more money or profit, get this profit and reinvest into communities. I think they will generate a lot of wealth for themselves. And we'll also cover our operational cost. So these are some things we have to understand when we go on field actually. And you as a student of this amazing department doing a lot of good work in rural development, we have to understand people first, right? What their needs are. There are a lot of solutions available. There are a lot of banks to finance it. But are we giving them right solution that can really help them at least, not increase their problems? Because we have increased their problems sometimes. So we have to understand what they are telling. Just give ear to them. Listen to them 1 week, 2 weeks, understand everything, and then start penetrating into the communities. It will really help. This is a very interesting pump. So we have done project from $12,000 where we can irrigate 5 hectares of land, a 7.5 HP pump, 10,000 liter of tank, and a 5 kilowatt system or 10 kilowatt if it is 7.5 HP. Now this, and India also, we have 85% small and marginal farmers. Same thing in Zambia. Can we get a pump below $200? And this was a pump. We found it, right? In the eastern province, one small person was making very interesting pumps. This is our Asian Paint water, one small container, and they had made the casing. Anybody has seen how the borehole is done? You drill it by iron pipes. Then you put a PVC casing. And these casings are sliced. So the water can come from the cracks of the ground. Right? So they use a small welding slicer to have these small perforations in the cap. And they put a 100-watt aquarium pump. You know fish pond? We have an aquarium pump. And this pump has a good flow rate of 5,000 to 10,000, 7,000 liters per day. And that's more than enough for half a hectare of land. For cultivating tomatoes, cabbage, okra is bhendi or lady's finger. And then this, and what was our model here? This is the entrepreneur, Frederick, and this is the 80 watt 2 panels. They can be folded and they can be hanged on your shoulder. The weight is almost like 18 kg or 17 kg because there is a theft always. Chances of getting this panel stolen everywhere. In India also if you put that, people will take it away and charge their phone or light something. And these are the shallow wells. So usually in Zambia, you will find water at a depth of 30-40 meters. So they do this and they get 10,000 liters of water every day through natural reservoirs. So this pump came really handy. So this pump we are able to make it at 9,000 or 10,000 Indian rupees. Now we have to deploy these 300 pumps. So we are working with a lot of NGOs there and creating entrepreneurs. We are not going to sell that. Create local entrepreneurs, give them the pump, they will charge extra 500 kwacha or 1500 rupees and they will maintain these assets. If they run this pump for 1.5 years, they will recover all this money. So this was another interesting thing. When we go on the field, we have to keep our eyes open. Just don't give one particular solution. Understand people what their need is. We can give solutions from $12,000 to $200 also. We means a partnership again, right? CS is not manufacturing, we are trying to connect people, understand the problem and give solutions. So impact, I think we sometimes at consulting good at giving numbers. So some slides on number, but let's see how it happens in next couple of years. Now we'll talk about, this was about Zambia. So I'm still left with some time and I'll stop there. Anything about Zambia you want to have or we'll take later on the questions, right? Very interesting project we are doing in Northeast, very beautiful part of our country, especially in Meghalaya and Nagaland. Anybody has traveled to these places in India? हाँ शिलोंग तक गया? ओके उसके आगे काफी जयंतिया गारो सब गए आप? Where? East Khasi Hills. Okay. One more, yes. You have home in Nagaland, in Dimapur? Okay. So in Nagaland we are doing project in Tuensang. Naklok, Shamadur, Nangling and Longling. It's bordering Myanmar. So from Dimapur, I can fly from Bombay to New York in 14 hours. But from Dimapur to Tuengsang, it takes 16 hours because of the terrain. It's really difficult area and lot of issues going on. But really amazing people, to be very honest. Amazing people. The social capital we have in Northeast is tremendous. They're hardworking. They will clear landslide. We were stuck one time for 6 hours in Nagaland, on the eastern side of Nagaland, eastern part of Nagaland, because of landslide. But it got covered because of local community itself. So these projects we are doing with UNDP. Very simple project. And what help we need might be I can share that. It was supported by UNDP India. It is solar powered sewing machines. Because there is no electricity, the productivity is going down. Electricity is coming erratic. And if they are stitching something and electricity goes, then the cloth fabric also gets deteriorated. So they wanted something that can run for 5 to 6 hours in a day, and the autonomy of the battery is 2 days. So we were able to get this solution at 53,000 Indian rupees. There are a lot of things to improve. Add some remote monitoring, we are trying to do that. We have deployed these 130 machines in Nagaland and Meghalaya, and we are going to put all remote monitoring system on them and understand their performance and all for next 2 years. And my team is collecting some data, and they are able to generate income of 6 to 8,000. On an average, it can be 2 to 3,000 if it is a newcomer. So I see within a month or a year, within a year they will be able to cover. But it was a grant, 90%, 10% beneficiary contribution. But now we are reaching to SIDBI, Rangde, microfinance or rural development banks to create a program. Can they finance the system? We need to sensitize them, financial literacy training. That is also a very important component of us as a social engineers to sensitize banks. They have a lot of money, NABARD and all. But we need to tell them, they're telling, sir, ये तो आप अच्छा slide बताते हैं, लेकिन हमारे office में आके, that people don't come to our office and tell them, these are the products. This can generate some cash flow. See, bank people need Excel sheet, which can speak numbers. So we have to do that, but we are trying, but we want to prove some model, and it is being very successful. That is, people are happy, and then we are giving some solution. This is another interesting training on food processing. Anybody has heard about Kisan Dharamveer? An amazing entrepreneur based in Haryana. He was a rickshaw driver first, and now within 1.5 lakhs rupees, he has developed such an amazing machine, which you can see here in some part. I don't have clear picture, which can remove the seeds without deteriorating your fruits and all. And it can make jam, jelly, shampoo, soap, everything in one machine. So all these products you see are made on these machines and by these people in this 4 days training. And we are deploying these 23 machines in Nagaland and Meghalaya. It's 1.5 kilowatt system, and the machine has inbuilt heater also. There are a lot of things to be studied on these machines, their efficiency, are they impacting the power factor, but it is a standalone system. So there is no grid connection issue here. But if they are operating on grid, are they deteriorating some power factor? But are they making income generation from this? Are there any missing link on market linkages? Because when you talk about development, it's not just electrical infrastructure development. It's more about, are they actually making money when we give this machine? So these are some of the projects we are trying to do in Northeast, and it is showing good results. And this is the last slide, I hope so. And this is silk spinning or reeling machine. So this is a small machine powered by 60 watt panel and a motor of 30 watt. And what it does, usually Meghalaya is very famous for Eric silk. And they are doing spinning or reeling from the cocoons by hand. So they can do it just 100 grams per day. With this machine, through Resham Sutra, they are able to do it 300 to 400 grams per day. So there is a village called Undeng. It's a silk village of India in Ribor district of Meghalaya. So silk, they get edible food also, the cocoons, because they already have that in their diet, and then through this fabric they can generate extra income. So what we have done, we have started something called as Purec. At least one of its first concept, government has done definitely. We want to complement that. It's where we'll keep all these machines, not for demonstration, actual learning center. And banks will be connected to them. Once they find value, these people will buy machines from them. And there will be an offtake also of these products. So we have cook stores there, we have sieving machine, silk reeling machine, food processing we are going to add more such decentralized rural technologies which are in context to that. So that's one of that. So next year our plan is to replicate this across 11 districts of Meghalaya and then take it to 765 districts of India in next 10 years. So that's the plan. We are trying to work with the partner like Clean is there or CIA is there and the academic institution also. And this is the silk reeling, solar sieving technology project in Meghalaya and all. And we have not just given machines, we have selected beneficiaries very, very meticulously. We got 100 people, gave them level 1 training. Based on that ranking, we told give 10% contribution and then we have given the machines and then level 2 training. And we have got 2 trainers which will be stayed in Meghalaya and Nagaland. But by just giving machines, things will not work. We need local champions, local people to take the initiatives forward. This is silk reeling, what I showed. This is a small panel on their house. And with all these machines, we are giving one phone charger connection also and one light connection also. So they are also happy. If not, then they will tweak their own way to get this done. In doing that, they will either damage the battery or panels. So, though the cost get increased by 200 or 2000 or 4000 rupees, but it really helps them to have one light and one charging connection for the phone. So I'll stop here. I was little over time. Sorry. Yeah. Any questions? आप बोल सकते हैं.
Sir, I was very curious about that decorticator case. So like you have gone there and you have seen people doing it by hand. So how many people were there? Like, can you give us?
10 to 12 people.
10 to 12 people.
10 to 12 people doing.
Now this machine is creating employment for 60 days for one person. So in 1 year, two people are employed. So what about those 8 people?
Yeah. So these 8 people, they are not getting any money. Usually they were just contributing voluntarily. Because what happens when these 8 people comes to your house? Hello. So when these 8 people comes to your house, then you are obligated to go to their house also. What happens in India also, when you have a big field, you share the employment not on payment basis, just on goodwill or in kind cash. So these people were more like just coming and helping them, and they were not paid by these people. Just they have to go on their field and help them when their groundnut comes, or in some other way they have to give in kind labor. So that was the model, how it is worked.
Yes, sir. Sir, I was just, it's a, you can say it's just a suggestion. So instead of that machine, we can have the hand operated decorticator that are really developed by India. Like there is an institute, Central Institute of Agriculture Engineering. The productivity is also high, and it is not that much technologically advanced that cannot be manufactured there that you have shown us. So it can also be manufactured there because it is very simple to manufacture, and also it will provide the employment to the people. Because ultimately, what that machine is creating, it's creating the employment for 2 people, and whatever the value addition is being done, whatever the processing is being done, it is only concentrated to the people who are operating it. So it is somewhat, it is creating a type of inequality, I think.
Yeah, you can take it that way, but if production is low, high, and if that people has to sit for 100 days, it's not human efforts going waste in some other way. Can be they put to more productive use. That can also be one way, and definitely hand operated. But I have seen a lot of hand operated devices. उसमें उतना quality should also come. When we take this groundnut and go to some vendor to sell, he sees right, the outer covering is not broken, it is not decorticated, and if they don't get right price, these people are at loss. So if there is a machine available which can do hand decorticating, fantastic, right? And these people are having large land holding, so it will be in hectares, and 1 hectare can give in tons of crops. And then what is the productivity? So I'm always in favor of hand operated devices. Always how much quality, better quality of output it will give to the grains. That is one area I have seen we are struggling in most of the things. We are seeing on hand operated devices. Yeah. If that issues can be solved,
It was just a suggestion.
no, I think get a machine for us, right? We'll definitely give 10 orders. Yeah. And IIT Bombay is we are taking syringe decoordinator, right? We are deploying that in Jharkhand with the Sitara department itself. In one machine it is. Yes.
Thanks a lot. I saw some new slides, so that is value addition for me.
Okay.
So one thing is, I'm having a question regarding, have you concluded that the mini grids which are having only minimalist approach, like there is only household load, are not going to be sustainable with your experience? Because you mentioned about the feasibility studies initially, what can be the local market and all, but there might be some cases in a country like India where people are in service sector already, mini grids near to Mumbai, they don't require any product to use at their site. They say that we are having the daily wages. We only want the electricity for our domestic use, mobile charging and lighting purpose. But then what about the sustainability? Because anyway your system is going to deteriorate. You need a battery replacement after some years, but that much revenue will not be generated because of this domestic load. So have you studied this, or are there any experiences where even only domestic load, but then still mini grids are doing well, and what might be the factors? Yes.
See, hello. This community-based microgrids, right? Where it's a predominantly single-phase microgrid. What I was talking about, these are three-phase microgrids. A proper 415 volt edge, right? Where we can operate big electrical loads. So, these microgrids, what I see, single-phase, these are stopgap arrangements till the main grid arrives in next 10 years, and that is going to happen, or at least that villages are going to move to a place where the mini grids or electrical infrastructure will come. So for 8 years, if somebody is putting the money of CSR or grants, then it's a good value proposition for that opportunity loss, right? 8 years they are not getting electricity, but some CSR agencies funding 10 lakh, 8 lakh rupees, and they are having 10 kilowatt system, 6 kilowatt system, and they are getting basic connection. But here again I am emphasizing, if batteries deteriorate, are we having enough money to replace that? And the experience I have seen, if they charge some 100 rupees also on rental basis, and there are 60 houses connection, it will get how much money for us? If it's 16 to 100 is 6,000 rupees per month. If it is 12 months, 72,000, right? In 5 years time, it will come to 4 lakh rupees approximately. And any lithium ion technology or lead acid technology for that site is really possible to get in 4,000 or 5 lakh rupees, 4 lakh or 5 lakh rupees. So still really practical, but only is we need those champions, because once these mini grids are set up, the developer doesn't give attention. They do give attention, but they are not accounting the O&M cost, operation and maintenance cost for next 5 years in the project. That's where we are finding some difficult time. And developers are happy to do that next 5 years, but the CSR agency is telling we have funds for this financial year only, and we have funds for more capex, means like hardware infrastructure, not for soft cost. So that's the problem. We can address as a sector collectively, but we can really see how these are. But these are really helpful till the grid reaches there.
So more issues in governance.
Yeah, governance, and we need local champions. If there is one real good person, he can really make that happen. We have seen some incident, money was kept in the panchayat, sarpanch account, and then he ran off with that. So that ownership also has to be there, right? Because that's an infrastructure, and it's a collective infrastructure. It's not of single person. So proper documentation has to happen, because sometimes we get so much engrossed in technology. Me also, I forget documentation, and I really have landed in serious trouble. Without documentation, we need new machine, and that doesn't work, and then we have to get back. It's hell. So let the project get delayed by 1 month, but have proper documentation, right? For the sake of community also, and for sake of us also. Small example, we did some project in Andaman and Nicobar 10 years back. And they filed a case, right? The batteries are not working and they are not undersized system. And that took like almost 3-4 months to settle that issue. That was more like a big project with SEBI. SEBI, not SEBI. So it was really difficult because there was no proper hand holding or transfer of asset also. Because the assets were still on the books of the developer. So are they also transferring the asset? I really don't know. So that is also one of the things you can look at. Yeah.
Sir, how electricity supplied by you is helping them making concrete blocks?
So there is a machine, right, which has some molds in which we have to put some gravel, some sand, and then it gets compressed. And for all this action, there is one induction motor, and that is having hydraulic tank. That energy is used to do that action, and then we put this proper composition of all this, and then we get these blocks. That's the way. And to be very honest, Mini Grid never thought, and he didn't give the idea. He saw this happening with other exposure, and then he got the machine and told, "Can I use your electricity?" And it really worked. And he's the richest guy in the village now, Mr. Rapson. Yeah, that was Mr. Paul who was in the video. So if you get Paul and Rapson in every mini grids are there to success. So we have to find right entrepreneurs, and they will make it happen. Mini grid players are not going to bother who is that entrepreneur because their core business is giving electricity. So agencies like us, we don't put mini grids. We are just trying to fix the gaps. Talk to mini grid player, talk to manufacturing agency, talk to banks, talk to policy makers. Guys, look, these are some, we need to talk to each other. So we are not mediator also, but we do impact work also. I do go and put systems, collect data, talk to communities, but work in collaboration. So that's how the concrete block making is used through electricity. They are using electricity for hydraulic operation. It's really lucrative business, huh? Concrete block making. Because now all the houses, they are initially you saw the video, were bricks. Now they are all shifting to concrete. Yeah, I'll put some pictures of that. It will help you.
Sir, regarding that one slide where there was a minimum and maximum graph, what you are trying to communicate, I am not sure, but is it that a lot of energy is left unconsumed? It is generated, but not all of it is required. So the remaining ones are stored in a BESS system, and it is saved for later, and the generation also stops when we have enough storage. Is that the principle?
Yeah, you can take it in two ways. This problem. See, battery has some threshold. It can accept some level of charge, and then it starts floating. Okay. After that, it will not accept charge. Then generation stops. So in these cases, if you see first 2 years in that graph, the batteries were fully charged because it was a new system. But there was not offtake or demand from the community. Either the electricity costs are high, either their usage is low because they don't have high appliances, or businesses were not operating during that time, or it was a COVID pandemic because that year also reasonably flat, 2019 to 2021. So there are 4-5 reasons. As a researcher, we might come with more reasons. Because in pandemic, there is no money to buy machines. If you buy machines also, there is no person who can get this concrete block because he also need money. So there are different cascading reasons that can happen. So my intent was more on battery side, but also on demand. It was not demand uptake, and that's why we are trying to create that demand organically. Means by adding more machines, by adding mechanization, because it's a massive agrarian economy.
Is just filling the gaps or creating more demand?
Creating more demand. That's a demand stimulation, the slide what I put. But very interesting on batteries. So CS also runs something called as India Energy Storage Alliance. Right? So once we started one initiative with IIT Bombay on the microgrid initiative for campus and rural electrification. And sir was there, Satish sir was there in 2016, right? So it was understanding why mini grids are failing on technical side. So it was more like batteries were the main reason. What happened? you might be knowing, and we did a lot of research on that at our Hinjwadi lab in Pune. So if your lead acid battery, they start corroding. Okay, under both the cathode and anode, you will have sulfation. And once the sulfation comes, the charge acceptance rate reduces. And once that reduces, you cannot feed in more power. Now, in this case, if the battery is 96 kilowatt hour, if the corrosion happens, it happens after 2 or 3 years. It will take just 50% of the charge, and it will show that it is full charge. So what we did, we understood and we made something called as SOC, state of charge monitoring device. And then we made a controller. First we did manually by checking the specific gravity in each. I stayed on 8 to 10 days on each side. Once I went to Forbisganj near Jogbani. There was a mini grid. So I stayed there 8 days, did manually and got that mini grid from, it was 120 kilowatt hour battery. It was just taking 30 units to 90 units we got them in 8 days by removing that sulfation or corrosion. How we do that? We have to just give little controlled extra charge to the batteries. At controlled setting, our battery will get exploded. And we increase the specific gravity. When batteries start corroding, the specific gravity comes to our voltage to 1.9, 1.10 or 2.1. We have to get it to 2.35. How we do it? By getting controlled charge. Right? Means by adding additional current which will heat the electrolyte inside and remove the corrosion. So we have a good person called Dr. Sensor. He was a manager with Exide for 25-35 years. He's massive, right? So we'll invite him someday here also. He can take you under the batteries also. So that is one problem we are trying to address on technical side on mini grids. So that battery can last for additional 2-3 years. So that is additional income for mini grid developers also. Okay.
The French company NG, they do it for profit or is it a CSR initiative?
No, it's for profit.
Okay.
Yeah. It's for profit. But to be very honest, all mini grids in the world are 70% grant funded. Because it's the sector which has not grown yet. But it will grow once government comes into picture.
Sir, my question was related, first is related to the groundnut this thing. So these machines are being exported from India. So these would be quite costly. So only a few of those large farmers or producers are able to afford it. So when the others are like, because as you mentioned that they are interdependent on each other for that process. For removal. So how are they managing that?
Okay. So is there any other question?
Yes, sir. And regarding this Meghalaya thing, like the various, you are stating that you would be implementing these training centers, then they can buy from that. So a similar thing is their bioresource complex has been set up in Hailakandi in Assam. So there, rather than giving them like asking them to buy, because they are poor, most of these people come from, they are not so well income. So what they do is that they are IIT Guwahati set up bioresource complex. People come there, use those machines and pay certain amount to buy. So probably this model could be replicated.
Yeah. Interesting. On first question, so only groundnut decorticator we imported from India. I thought it will not be a sustainable model. So we started working with local fabricating industry. That's very important. Because fabrication you can find everywhere. Just making iron frames and all. Because machine is more about fabrication and then getting some critical components. But all machines, oil expeller and all, they are manufactured in China, Zambia itself. They're getting, see, motors Zambia cannot manufacture at present. So they are importing motors India, Germany or China. But other parts like angle frame, the roller, they are trying to make it there now. So it is getting the cost down. That is one. And second, on groundnut decorticator, it's more about this groundnut decorticator. Now they will be using as a community based model also. But irrigation we are trying to focus more on community based model. If you are trying to put a big system, then 10 farmers we are trying to get together. That is the model we are really working on. Because then that will get the cost down to each farmer, which they cannot afford. So that's the next phase we are really actively working on. Because to work with one person is easy. To work with 10% it's not easy. But we have to find out ways. Unless you involve local community player who is a really champion, things will work out. But that's the way forward we also see. And on the biodiversity center, right? Or park complex. So it's in Assam and we'll try to look at. We have a person Tariq there. I'll ask him. Or IIT also Guwahati, we were there for rural dialogue. This is Siddhant, some professor.
Siddharth Singh Dasani.
Yeah.
He himself has set up
Oh,
this thing.
yeah. So we can connect with him. So that's one. But I wanted like it should be market-based solution. Definitely, if people are poor, we need to empower them and see like when their affordability increases. If they're making something, it has to be taken off by somebody. Then only money will come. In entire process, market linkage is missing badly. They will make everything. They will make clove. They can make spices, but there is no offtake. If there is a offtake, these people really manage to get the machine paid off.
BRC, like there they come, they manufacture the things. Then BRC itself is helping them to
Sell out.
doing this, developing the marketing.
Market, exactly.
So Siddharth sir is working on that.
Yeah.
So they are also giving this certification kind of thing so that the
Yeah.
products are
Like FSI or something. Yeah.
I'm not sure because I haven't worked with such things, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's where right now everybody has to concretize that effort, and I'm trying to get more private sector participation. We need scale. Scale comes with government and private sector. At least what I have seen in my limited experience, where private sector can pump in money and government can create those public good infrastructure. So let's see. I'll talk to sir also and then get some information. And these centers, we are not building infrastructure. Government is giving the place they already have. It is not functioning. So we are just getting machines, and also we are not putting money on machines. We are just saying you will get business, put your 3 machines there. But we are trying to talk to banks first, because we need money, right? If the machines have to be sold, who will get that money? But there is a lot of subsidies or government support available. They will just unlock that. So that can be really one good work on unlocking finances for this DRE. For grassroots. NABARD is interested, Merida is interested to do that. Meghalaya Rural Development Bank is there, SIDBI is there. That can really help. If those comes into picture, market will also get developed, I feel. Because banks are not confident yet enough. They're telling these are small pocket size demonstrations. And banks also need numbers and cash flows on their books to give something, lending. So we're trying to see, it's not an easy dialogue, but it will happen. With more conversations, more such pilots, taking them to the field, giving them exposure, connecting that goodwill, it will happen. Okay. Thank you.
Sir, I would like to know your experiences about the community level ministries. 2 aspects. First, about the mostly the cleaning part of the solar panels, which directly influence the performance of the system. First, like, do the community regularly cleans the panels, or how do they own the system to operate it? And second, about the availability of skilled laborers to repair and maintain the system, the solar panels as well as the heavy machines that you shown, mostly the decorticators, especially in the remote locations, which might not be dependent on urban areas for repair and maintenance, in Zambia or maybe in Northeast. So on these 2 aspects, I would like to know your experiences about operationality of the system.
Very interesting question, and it's very rightly I think somebody asked this question. What about after sales service, right? Of mini grids also, and what are equipments we give. So in Zambia, the day one when we bought the machines, we had an agreement, right, with the supplier. Next 2 years you should support with critical spare part, and for installation also you should go there and install it. And you should give training for how to dehull the maize, and also oil expeller, because there are very tricky parts. So that's where we are trying to work with the manufacturers, so they also have their skin in the game, right? Because they just don't want to give machine and run away. So they do hold their payment back. That's the way, right? How it works little bit. So that's one way, but they are really good. They were telling, if we see a business of 200, 300 machines, why can't we give service to that? And this company, what I was telling about Saro, they have their after sales office in every province of Zambia. So I think within a 10 days time we'll be able to repair that. In Zambia, why I'm telling in Zambia 10 days it takes time little bit. But in India, when we talk about all these equipments, we have given our number on the machine. If you have any problem, please contact. In 72 hours it will get repaired if it is not in high terrain, and almost like a week's time if it is in difficult terrain. And then we have a local people whom we train in Bangalore or in Guwahati, where they can go, and they have been paid some 12,000 to 14,000 rupees, and that is included in our contract for next 2 years. So we are trying to understand this. Unless they don't accept this, we are not signing their contracts. So that's how we are trying to work.
Cleaning of the panels.
Yeah, cleaning of the panel. This mini grid, if you take 100 kilowatt system, it will be almost like if it is 558 watt panel, it will be 96 panel or 100 panel maximum. 50 kilowatt system, if it is 100 kilowatt, it will be 200 panels. So all these mini grids, at least in NG community, I'll talk to you later. They have a dedicated resource, one local person, which they pay 1500 rupees or 1000 rupees a day, right? It's a good amount for him, who takes care of this cleaning system, and also he will go to the community and see what is the fault. He will not replace that. Then he will intimate to the main person of NG, and then they will come in 3 or 4 days and solve that. So that's anything? Okay. So that was on cleaning panel. And community microgrids, again, all these microgrid developers are having one resource local. I told you, they charge 100 rupees, and then from that their salary comes 600, 700,000 rupees. At least what I've seen in Maharashtra or Jharkhand also. So that person is happy. So it's a part-time job from him, but he cleans panels, and then if there is any issues, he talks to the developer. So it's more like sustaining, but it's not easy. If he leaves the village, then you have to find next person. So that's how the things are operating on the ground. Yes, yes sir.
The first question is that you have now experience in Northeast as an Indian context. You have also experience in Zambia as a different context. Now, what are the challenges, and is there both the countries, the challenges are same or different? Or mini why I'm telling this, I have also good experience of doing microgrid in an altitude of 18,000 feet in North Sikkim, where I have installed a 50 kilowatt peak of solar panel for an Indian Army base. And so that's what I know, and then it was given 120 unit of electricity per day to the Army base. So that's a different challenge I know, but this is a challenge I wanted to see, and also other thing I wanted to know, that when in most of the cases you are talking about the subsidy. Well, subsidy is not a solution, it's a supplementary solution in most of the cases, right? So if you think that the subsidy is not there, it is going to be sustainable of this microgrid or mini grid. And also in case of residential sector, because we take that all of the things we are telling, there's a business involved in it. But is it possible that in the residential sector also it will be sustainable?
So first question, see, North is very different terrain, but I did work across 26 states when I was with PhD. First in the secretariat, now in the board. So that's because we did a lot of projects from 2016 to 2020 before I moved back to PS. So there are similarities because it's in both are agrarian economy, India as well as Zambia. Though our crop productions are different, we predominantly rice and wheat, but they eat maize. So I feel there is a similarity, but consumption levels are different on energy side, and the income parity is also different, and the sizing of the houses or villages are also different. They are sparsely distributed. So if the mini grid is nearby, the houses are nearby, it becomes very easy to optimize the distribution network. In India, it's very easy to do that. But in Zambia, people are staying in pockets, like I mentioned, 15-20 households. So what they do, they select this hamlet like 5, 6 and then put the center mini grid. So they all shift there from here. Next 2 or 3 years, what we have seen all the mini grids. So it's more like a...
Because I work on the green hydrogen. And I dream in my life I will see that people are using green hydrogen in the last miles and cooking. And we have made the device, I have told him sometimes also I'd love to come here with the presentation because this is the forum, they can take it to that, they can take it to the next level. And that's the reason I was asking, because you know in case of sub-Saharan Africa, only 20% people have LPG. And so my question was also that how they are cooking there also. That's what I wanted to learn from you.
Well, I have addressed the first question. It's the fourth question now. Last question. So hydrogen definitely yes, but we have good vision from cocoa. How this cookies on charcoal in Zambia? It's a big program of USAID Alternatives to Charcoal, $26 billion fund. But where it is used, we don't know. It's struggle because they have to do fuel stacking, not just promoting any technology, but stacking of fuels. So they have promoted LPG infrastructure in urban also and rural also. Boreholes are there. Yes. And if there is a stream, that is good. The arsenic level, the TDS level is very good. People are having a lot of diseases there. And sometimes borehole doesn't fetch water also. And then it's a struggle for them. So we are also thinking water can be an infrastructure, but we don't want to charge poor people. So we will find out a way where we use water for drinking at no cost, we can buy additional than charge. Something like a business model, because unless we get that aspect into the picture, things will not work, because then wastage of water, lot of things have happened. We have done a lot of projects in India also grant issues. It becomes difficult. That was one of subsidy you mentioned, right? So I am also partially in favor where technology has to pick up, but if we start running, then we don't have to give technology. Because same example like water leakers in India. In early 90s or early 2000, there were a lot of subsidies for water leakers. Now it is a self-sustainable model. Similarly now PM Surya Ghar Yojana. They are trying to push for residential sector, but we have to see the quality of installation and the other things happening. Similarly mini grids, if you talk about subsidy, a 100 kilowatt system takes $4,400. Why that much?
Is there a quantification criteria or like to decide some sort about this, like when that will go into research?
Yeah. It's like a break even you are telling, right? So if it is 100 kilowatt system, $400,000, it's not a big amount. But now if you put a transmission line, right, or a power plant, we are giving subsidies, right? Entire transmission distribution network is subsidized. Then we need to have some level playing field for mini grid players also, if they are going to the last mile and doing this. So that's the idea we are telling to MNRE also, data Mr. Secretary, have level playing. You are giving 30 years to them to make things happen, and see the other discounts are struggling. Uday 1, Uday 2, Uday 3 will also come now. So we are telling, let's give them an opportunity. Don't subsidize, but at least 30%, 40% you can give. And that's the model. All these mini grids in Zambia, 30% are grant funded by World Bank or European Union or Rockefeller. Another 30% comes from government. Government are also putting that because they're not going to put the infrastructure there. The cost is saved and that cost is reduced. And then 30% is a debt that the company has to raise. And that's the model I see, right? Slowly, when you see a business prospering, you reduce the grant component and get private sector banks to be involved, or DFIs, to be involved, development financial institutions. So they can take up that and give long-term loans with less interest, like World Bank does or ADB does or Japanese government does. So that will create more sustainable way for the infrastructure in the last month. Because we have to understand people will not be able to pay and we don't have to charge and we are not particularly right also. We have to find out ways where the cost of electricity is a bare minimum, it's not bare minimum. When we talk about the cost of electricity in the rural area. But it will come to that parity over a period of time. Okay, I was able to answer this. Yes.
So, my name is Asmita, I am from Ethiopia, Africa. So, thank you for the presentation, it was nice. And I will my technical question, but how come you become connected to country? Yeah. How did you get connected? Huh?
How do you get
How did you get connected with Zambia and how about other countries? Have you tried? And the other question is probably how is the scope of the project? Can it be applied at larger scale without more communities? And also especially for cooking purposes, which reduce much the very aspects.
Yeah, it was interesting how I landed in Zambia. So when I started working, 2 to 3 weeks. So when we started India operations, my boss, right, who sits in US, he got me on board in India. Got me on board in India to do rural development projects. Because I was traveling crazy, right? We need people who go out, don't bother about family also, right? And then they give their life to the society. It happens, right? When you have a family, you need to have a commitment to serve them. And that's a legal obligation. We have to do that. So when I was traveling in India, we did good projects in 2 years when I joined. We already had a thing that we have to do something in Africa. Africa is a big continent with 53 nations. And Southern Africa, we had 3-4 parameters. Stability or political stability first. My boss think you have to be safe. He has got my insurance for kidnapping. Before I talked about Africa, he's saying you should get a insurance, right? A ransom, कुछ बोलते हैं. Then okay, then you can go. But you should start next 5 years in Southern Africa. I'm not telling you to go to Nigeria. Nigeria is a big market and it's a little risky also. So but I told we have to work where people we need to serve. He told okay, but start slowly. So we went to South Africa first. It's a matured economy, but it was not safe now. South Africa, we all know, right? We were in Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town. Then we went to Mozambique. It was another level. In South Africa border, everything was good. When we entered into Mozambique, Maputo, it was terrible. We were not feeling safe. Everything was shut down after 8 o'clock in the evening. Because there is now issues in the northern because of oil issues. Then we went to Botswana. These are countries, huh? Botswana is just 1.5 million economy. It's a massive country. You can build a lot of gold and diamonds. But we will serve, right? We need some scale also for the project. So then finally we landed into one exhibition in Zambia last October. And then I started connecting dots because there was already a program launched by the government for powering 1,000 microgrids. And then we thought things are connecting here. There is a political stability also. And there is a safer operation also to operate. And there are 7-8 mini-grid players already working. So we selected that. Definitely we have an opportunity to work in Ethiopia. If that clicks, we'll be in Ethiopia next year. It's mostly on cooking only. Yeah.
Also out of the 600 million you said, non-electrified?
Yeah.
Almost 95% of them are from Africa.
Yes,
Because
almost.
50% is,
Yeah.
not
Yes.
Okay, we are almost running out of time. So thank you so much, Nitin, for here. I know you are traveling a lot and it's very difficult to get your time, but you came here and engaged with the class. So it was so I request Ashmadesh to come forward and honors the small memento from Sitara. Come here and you have to give it to Nitin. Ethiopia. You can invite him to Ethiopia, but you have to go to Ethiopia first. So I think Nitin can be available for a few more minutes if you want to have any follow-up questions. I think you are almost going to solve Omkar's PhD problem now. So
Please keep easy. We will get many things for.
Yeah,
we will get
I
many
think
things for
this sector is really interesting. And,
so let's hope that few more students will get energized to work in the energy sector.
yeah,
Because
if you want to do some internships, some after this project, I think really open because Green Network now have industry body of 400 macro entrepreneurs across India. So just come, they are across India and Africa also if you want to work. Right? I'll try to see how your stay and accommodation can be done.
You will do the insurance.
The insurance is another thing, but that's my boss requirement, right? Now recently I don't quote this in the forum. It's not recording, right?
Everything is recorded.
It's recorded. You can stop there. I'll tell you the interesting thing what happened. I don't take that risk.